Harley hate channels, specifically the AI driven channels. And you know, the ones you hear the voice, it's no one there, it's a hollow shell. They're unreal and they are full of lies. And half of them take up 20 minutes to say literally nothing and give you no substance other than like recycling the same 2 or 3 points 15 times over without actually giving proof, evidence, or anything that you can go off of. They just sit there and they're all over this platform. And, you know, it's more of an issue now because now I'm actually paying more attention to the motorcycle world so that I can engage in content and stuff like this. But I think this is going to have to be a whole series where I just find a bunch of these guys and start calling them out on their lies. But I'm going to start with one that I found today. That is the 10 motorcycles that outclass any Harley Davidson. And like, it's just so off base. And like what they're saying isn't even true, but they're going to present it to you like they know exactly what they're talking about. They're going to give you some numbers and talk about horsepower and why it's a better bike, but it's all a house of cards that needs to be torn down from its very base. So I'm gonna go through this video and we're gonna actually pull out some of the real numbers, the actual stats, what they're doing, 0 to 60 horsepower, comparative ratios, and why the bike they're comparing it to doesn't even make sense because Harley isn't in the space they are talking about. Because 9 times out of 10 people talk about these bikes, but Harley doesn't even make anything comparable. Some of these are 500, 600cc motorcycles. Harley doesn't make anything that small until the Sprint comes out, hopefully next year, like we've been told. But until the Sprint comes out, they're completely absent from that market, which I think is a huge mistake and a criticism that I have made on Harley several times. But you cannot compare a 500cc motorcycle to a Harley Davidson Breakout. Of course, the price is going to be different. Of course, the weight is going to be different. They're not even close. But let's get into it. Let's start it. And you know what? Maybe I'm just dead wrong. I don't think I am, but I'll pull up receipts.
A brand new Harley Davidson Street
just
Glide
right
will
out the
set you
gate,
back $30,000.
you know the voice.
But what
It's
if I
hollow.
told you there
It's
are
nothing.
10
It's fake,
motorcycles that
right?
outperform Harley Davidson motorcycles for less than half the price? They absolutely embarrass
Maybe
them.
it's not
I'm
AI.
talking
Maybe it's
better
just this
performance,
guy, right?
better reliability, better
Maybe.
value, and better ergonomics. Number 10, the Kawasaki Eliminator. We are kicking
Not a
this
terrible
off
bike.
with a machine that isn't
Really
just a
good for
competitor.
starters. I
It is a
enjoy it.
rolling mechanical middle finger to the now discontinued Harley Street 500 and 750. Remember those? Harley tried to build an entry-level bike, failed miserably and entirely. Kawasaki looked at that failure,
That's
cracked
my
their
larger
knuckles,
point, is
and
that
showed
Harley
the world
Davidson
how it
is
is
not in
actually
these
done.
sectors.
Let's look at the current competition, the Harley Davidson Nightster. The Nightster is a cool bike, admittedly. It has that
We will get into the numbers, but I don't like this comparison. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's fair to the Eliminator. Not to the Nightster, to the Eliminator. Because it does a huge disservice to try to compare that Eliminator to this Nightster. And once the numbers start coming up and I start showing the numbers, I feel like it will be obvious. But this is like pitting a 600cc sport bike versus a liter bike.
Revolution Max engine.
Because that's what it is.
But it costs roughly $14,000 for a starter bike. That is not...
First lie. Right out the gate. I mean, 14K, right? It's hard for you guys to see that one, but this is 999, so 10,000, and the special is 12.4. Now, admittedly, I don't think the special should exist because realistically, all it is a couple of upgrades involving ABS electronics package. I think the Nightster special should be the only Nightster, and I think it should stay at that 10K. That's my take, and I will criticize that, but I mean, there it is. It's not $14,000. And you can come at me and say, well, what about shipping and freight and tax and title and all that. That's fine, but you can't get that for any specific location. You can't give a general number for, because it's all location specific, and those aren't the prices that he's going to show for the Kawasaki. And I will show that because he will give the price later for the lowest entry Kawasaki while telling you an inflated price on the Nightster, which does skew the value add proposition, right?
Not just expensive, that is financial malpractice. That is the price of a decent used sedan.
And what
Enter
you
the
want.
Kawasaki Eliminator.
It's
It
not
is brand new,
malpractice.
low, long, and mean. It looks like a drag bike that shrank in the wash, carrying a distinct neo-retro aggression. Under the tank, it features a 451 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine.
So we're sitting here saying we are going to compare a sub 500cc motorcycle to a 1250, and it's going to blow the Harley out of the water. Until Harley makes that sprint, which I expect this year, I really hope it comes out. We have no idea what Harley's doing in this space, but this isn't going to be a fair comparison because they're not even in the same ballpark. Why we're making this comparison is beyond me, but here we are.
Derived from the legendary Ninja 400. That means this engine isn't just reliable, it is bulletproof and rev happy.
This engine isn't just reliable, it's bulletproof. I've talked on this. Kawasaki's struggling right now. They have serious issues that they have to address. But the Ninja 400 has a faulty camshaft tensioner affecting 2021 models. More recently, damaged spark plugs affecting 23 through 24 Z4RRs and ZX4Rs, potentially alternator rotator loosening affecting 23 models. Look, this isn't a dig. I think Kawasaki makes really good bikes, and I think they're doing really good in the market right now. But you're going to sit here and tell me that this engine is bulletproof when these 400 series Kawasaki's have had recalls a lot in the last 5 years, but that Nightster hasn't. It's reliability, right? But we're going to tell you Kawasaki's doing it better than everyone else, even though they are swamped with recalls right now. And it's leaving a lot of bad taste in a lot of Kawasaki customers' mouths. And I hope they overcome it because I think they make good bikes and I want to see them succeed. But we're going to ignore those for this video to put down the Nightster.
This is about 49 horsepower, which is plenty to get you in trouble. But here is why it absolutely outclassed.
So he just gives you one number, right? We're only going to give you one number because why would we not? Why would you give any more than that? View specs and details. You're not going to give the comparison, right? You're not going to tell us what the Nightster makes because that would be embarrassing for you. No, not technology. Power. 51 horsepower, 37 pounds of torque. He sold the Kawasaki short in this. So he lied in the wrong direction for the Kawasaki on this video, but it is 51 horsepower at 31 torque. The Nightster. 91 over 72. So 91 over 72 versus 51 over 31. This is a big difference. It's a big difference in these lighter bikes. But we're only going to give the one Kawasaki horsepower number to make it so that it doesn't stand out as falling short of the other ones, right?
This is the American
that's what we do.
competition. Weight. The Eliminator tips the scales at just 388 pounds. The Nightster, it weighs nearly 400.
All right. So he's wrong on these too. These numbers aren't right, but they're the numbers he gave. They're pretty close. They are close. I will say that. Here it is. Curb weight 388. 385.9 for the non-ABS. So he gave the 388. 485 is the claim on the Nightster. Which again, pretty close. So we're going to get pretty much dead on for the non-ABS. Kawasaki. But we're going to throw up 480, 4 extra pounds for the Nightster. I'm willing to bet he gave the non-ABS weight for one and the ABS weight for the other. Let me look. I think this is the Nightster standard. If I go to the Nightster special, what's the odds? Nope. He still gave it 2 extra pounds. Even for non-ABS to ABS, he still gave the Harley Davidson 2 extra pounds. Why? Because I don't know, he rounded for Harley Davidson, but he didn't feel like rounding for Kawasaki. And it's a small little exaggeration, but it is an exaggeration. It is a lie. Be consistent, I guess, is what I'm saying, right?
185 pounds. That is practically a 100-pound difference. When you are a new rider trying to perform low-speed maneuvers in a parking lot, that extra weight feels like carrying a bag of cement on your back. The Kawasaki is
That's
nimble.
an exaggeration.
It is friendly. It features a slipper clutch so light you could pull it in with your pinky toe. And then there are the ergonomics. Kawasaki uses their genius ErgoFit system, meaning you can adjust the seat, pegs, and bars to fit your body type perfectly before you even leave the dealer. On the Harley, if you don't fit the stock setup, get ready to open your wallet again for a $400 reach seat. The price?
Okay.
$6,600.
Hold on. $400 for a reach seat? Look, Harley parts are expensive. From Harley, $249. Saddleman, $225. Hogwarts, $319. Those are 3 options, all under $400. 2 on this screen come from Harley Davidson that are under $300. Again, just small little exaggerations that mount up to lies. But he's going to talk about the weight and how it makes it so much more nimble and how that puts Harley way out of its reach. One thing I want to look at, the Eliminator 0 to 60 is just under 6 seconds. The Nightster's 0 to 60 is 3.92. They're not even in the same fucking competition. They're not even trying, right? Like, we aren't on the same page on this. They're not comparable, which is my position. But he's going to lie to you and tell you that these are comparable bikes and that the Kawasaki Eliminator is best bang for buck and puts the Harley into the ground. That's just not true. I think we know it's not true. I don't think these should be compared, but here we are. And numbers matter. They're small little lies, but they add up to try to make a picture that isn't true.
$149. Do the math. You could buy 2 Eliminators for the price of one night's.
You can't, though. You can't. Because if you want the ABS model of the Kawasaki, which, again, he's saying that the Nightster costs $14K, which the ABS version, the Nightster Special, costs $12,400, but the Kawasaki Eliminator ABS costs $7,000. So you're either comparing a 6.4, right, to a 999, or you're comparing the SE at 7 to 12, and neither of those are half the price of its competitor. It's close, but it's a much smaller bike. You're not getting as much bike. That's the price difference.
And still have cash left over for a year of premium insurance. It is the definition of value. But maybe you aren't sold on a parallel twin. Maybe you crave that classic V-twin soul. Maybe you want an air-cooled engine that vibrates in a good way. Well, we have the perfect successor coming up next. Number 9, the Yamaha Bolt R-Spec. This is the bike that Sportster lovers buy when they get tired of paying the Harley tax. It is the successor to the legendary Sportster 883 iron, which Harley sadly killed off. The Harley it destroys, the Sportster Iron 883, and the current Nightster. The Iron 883 was iconic.
I have to say, I've talked on this at length, but honestly, the Sportster had to go away. It really did. It was just outdated. it couldn't keep up with modern comparative models in the market. It was just old and tired. It is what it is. I'm not super happy about it, but I'm not going to get all wrapped up about it. So again, now we're comparing this bike to a bike that isn't even made anymore.
But it had suspension made of concrete and brakes made of wood. And what did Yamaha do? They looked at Harley and said, "Hold my beer." Yamaha didn't just copy the Sportster, they refined it. It features a 942 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin. It has that classic, rhythmic thump that you crave. It sounds like a heartbeat, but unlike the old Sportster, this engine has modern internals. It has ceramic composite cylinder liners to dissipate heat. It has a sophisticated fuel injection system that doesn't cough and sputter on cold mornings. The R-Spec means it comes with upgraded piggyback shocks. And this is a huge deal. It means when you hit a pothole, your spine doesn't disintegrate. It handles with a surprising amount of agility for a bobber. It feels planted, it feels solid. The styling is pure urban bobber. High tank, solo seat, minimal chrome. It is a blank canvas for customization, just like the Harley.
But the parts are cheaper for this probably is like the Scout 60.
Needing a hammer. The price of the Bolt? $8,999. Compare that to the used market for Sportsters, which is currently insane, or the...
All right, let's bring it over. Let's compare it to the used market. Oh man. 2000, 2000, 2000, 2000, 2000, 2000, 2000, 3000, 3000, 3000. I don't know. It's not that insane. I mean, a lot of these are older. I mean, that's a 13 for 4. 883, you know, it's a 2009 1200 for 4. Like, and look, this isn't a dig. If I'm going to be completely honest, this isn't a dig. The reason it's not a dig is because Harley Davidsons have been known to retain value better than most other motorcycles on the market in the used market. And that is of benefit to the rider. When you buy a Harley Davidson and you go to trade it in later because you want a newer model, or you feel like you've outgrown it, or you have a different riding style you're trying to get to, the Harley Davidson tends to give you better trade-in value because they retain value better in the used market. That's not a dig, and it's not out of control, because I'm going to have to go through several pages just to find one that costs as much as the Bolt R in the used market, even though he says the used market is insane and you can't get anything for this. And if you want to compare it to the Nightster, we're going to start running the numbers again. You're not going to be happy where it lands.
New Nightster at $14,000.
Again with the lie, $14,000. You can't, there's no sports or Nightster that costs $14K. The only way you get there is if you're averaging the price of the Nightsters and the Sportster S, which you don't want to bring the Sportster S into this conversation because it'll dog walk it and not even try. 14 is not the number. I showed you it's not the number. It's a made up number. I don't know where he's getting it.
Gives you that raw mechanical soul for under $9,000. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video, please
don't like and subscribe. You'll regret it.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe. You'll surely be glad you did. But maybe you don't care about sport. I watch these so
you don't have to.
Then you want the classic swept fender look of the 1950s. There is a...
Okay. So he's moving on to a new one, but we're not going to let this dog lie, right? Because again, it comes to the numbers. Yeah, that's great. 942 displacement, 542 pounds. It's kind of heavy. It's heavier than the Nightster. He just told you in the last segment that weight of the Sportster or Nightster feels like a bag of cement. But now the Yamaha is heavier. We're not going to talk about the weight. One thing that I will say, like, okay, we run the numbers again. We'll go back to, okay. First off, I have the old Sportster pulled up, and its horsepower was 60 to 70 at 70 foot-pounds of torque. The Yamaha, no. Horsepower and torque, 50 horsepower, 50 to 60 foot-pounds of torque. It doesn't even hit the same numbers as the old Sportster. And if you ask why I went to Google for that one, It's because Yamaha doesn't share those numbers on their page. If they do, I haven't seen it. I've looked at specs and stuff, and like, I just don't think they give those numbers. Those numbers aren't on there. Horsepower, torque, not listed. I wonder why. I really don't. I know why, but there they are. So then we go to the 0-60 4.8 to 4.9. You want to compare it to the Nightster's 3.92. Nightster's faster again because it has more horsepower, it has more torque, and the Nightster's lighter than the Bolt. At 9.9 versus 8.9 versus 9.9, the Nightster is lighter, faster, more horsepower, more torque. Those are just the numbers. But that Yamaha Bolt dog walks. The Nightster puts Harley to shame, right? No, you're not giving the numbers. You're not being honest about any of this conversation. You're ignoring things segment to segment that make one look good and try to put down the other. But it makes no sense because it's all a lie. And you're comparing them to things that don't really line up. You want to compare it to the old Sportster. It's not even made anymore. What are we talking about? Used bike versus new bike, modern technology versus something that Harley walked away from because it wasn't modernized. That's what it is. It's a house of cards and it's all lies. And it's very disingenuous in the way it presents absolutely everything so far. But I mean, we're about to get into the next bike, so see how that goes. Now that we got into the video a little bit, I hope you like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about some of these comparisons down in the comments. I need to know, am I way off base here? Or do these comparisons make sense and I'm just out of my mind? Or am I right in pointing out the fact that these don't need to be compared the way they are? Let's get back to it.
A beast that completely destroys the Harley Heritage Classic. Number 8, the Suzuki Boulevard C50. This is the Heritage Classic for the working man. If you love the look of fat tires, floorboards, and massive fenders, but hate the idea of spending 25 grand, Suzuki has your back. This beast is...
Like, I don't know what we're going for. Are we going just off of ride position, comfort, like just generally a general, they ride kind of the same and feel kind of the same? Is this the only that's the only part that compares? Is my personal opinion. Like, I think this bike does a lot and it offers a lot at a low entry price, but it does not give you what the Heritage Classic gives you. And I don't even think it's necessarily apples to apples for the Heritage Classic. And I'll get into that in a second.
Destroys the Harley-Davidson Heritage Classic. A beautiful bike, undeniably. But it starts at $22,000. That is a down payment on a house in some states.
20 is not 22. I think we can agree on that, right? 19.9. 20 is not 22. It's not. But for that sell price, getting hard locking bags, windscreen. Big deal. Big deal if you want to do some highway miles. This does not come with that. It doesn't. Which means I don't feel like it's comparable just off that. You're not getting a windscreen. You're not getting hard locking bags. So I feel like it's a lot closer to the Street Bob. It's closer. But again, some of the numbers are not going to be very favorable once you start talking about performance. But this comes in at 15. So the Street Bob, no windscreen, no hard locking bags, 15, not 22. Hell, the Heritage Classic isn't even 22 because it's 20. So again, we're in a situation where we're going to lie about the price of the Harley Davidson and inflate it, but we're not going to do that with the Boulevard. I can almost guarantee it.
The Suzuki Boulevard C50 hasn't changed much in 20 years, and that is its strength. It features an 805 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled V-twin. Wait, liquid-cooled? Yes. Suzuki hides the radiator between the frame down tubes so cleverly that you barely notice it. You get the classic look of air cooling finning with the reliability of a radiator. It creates pure, unadulterated torque down low.
On the cooling thing, like, it is what it is, but the new M8s are twin cooled, not only air cooled. So you still get liquid cooled heads on the M8, which is comparable to liquid cooled, not fully. And I yell at Harley. I feel like they haven't done enough, and I feel like we should be in the era where we do offer fully liquid cooled engines, but probably in the touring and CVO lines, while keeping the dual cooled M8s, because they offer a much different riding experience that's a lot snappier and it feels a lot more responsive. It gives you more of a seat check. It's my personal humble opinion, but I mean, okay, this is fully liquid cooled. The Harley is twin cooled. So it's not really a dig either way. They're just different cooling options.
It is perfect for cruising the boulevard at 45 miles per hour in top gear, just listening to the exhaust burp.
That's a big deal. I am not in top gear on my Road Glide at 45. You won't be in your top gear on a Heritage Classic. You'll be in fourth or fifth. I don't even know if you'll be in fifth. You'll probably be in fourth gear, which means you'll have a lot more to run out. That's not a benefit. And I don't even know if that's true on the Boulevard necessarily, but I don't think that's a selling point. It doesn't sound great to me.
But the real killer app
where's
here
the
is the
topping?
shaft drive. Harley uses belts or chains. Suzuki uses a shaft.
Harley hasn't used a chain in a really long time. And this will come up later in the video, but I'll harp on it then when I harp on it then.
Is enclosed. It is maintenance free. You never have to lube it. You never have to adjust it. You just ride. For a senior rider or anyone who hates getting grease under their fingernails, this is a godsend. The suspension is tuned.
Is it a godsend? If I lose a belt, I'm out like what, 50 to 150 bucks. If I lose a belt, if that shaft goes wrong, it goes wrong. You're replacing the whole shaft. Easily 4 times the money. And it's a lot bigger project. You're going to have to take it to a shop. They're going to have to pull out the whole drive shaft, replace everything. Like, those gears and anything goes wrong in that drive shaft, it is a big problem. You snap a belt, snap a belt. It's a lot easier to maintenance a broken belt than it is a drive shaft. However, the shaft is less likely to have those problems. But when it does, it's going to bite you.
For comfort, not speed. It floats over bumps. It has massive floorboards that let you move your feet around. It is a couch on wheels. The price? $9,299. You are getting...
But you see what I'm saying? Look at the price. Dead on MSRP for the Suzuki. He inflated the price on the Heritage Classic by $2,000, and it's not even a fair comparison because this Suzuki Boulevard doesn't have what a Heritage Classic has. So it's closer to this 14.9, but when you start breaking it down, at 14.9 you're getting 98 horsepower, 120 foot-pounds of torque out of a 117 versus the Boulevard, the Boulevard, which is getting 52 horsepower at 51 to 52 foot-pounds of torque. It's not even close. And if you're going to talk about chewing up highway miles or actually getting on the highway, that is going to make a difference, because now we're not talking about weight again. Why aren't we talking about weight again? Because this Suzuki Boulevard has a curb weight of 611 pounds. That's got to be like 6 concrete bags according to his first segment, right? The Heritage Classic is, look, it's going to be heavier, but it offers you the bags, the windscreen, and a bigger motor. Bigger motors are going to weigh more. There's no way around that. You can't add displacement in the engine without adding weight to the engine. And it comes in at 719 in running order, but the Street Bob comes in a lot closer. And even on horsepower, you're getting 98, 120 on the horsepower for this thing, but you're coming in at 646 pounds. It's only 35 pounds heavier, but you're over double the horse and weight, or horse and torque. Tell me you're not going to feel that on the road. Tell me that's not going to make it easier to make that highway jump. Tell me the Boulevard stacks up directly with the Street Bob in this case. And you can't. Realistically, that Boulevard is probably going after something like a Super Scout, which Harley doesn't make. And I've preached on Harley needing more lineup in that 10 to 15K range. They need a bigger lineup there. But at best, this probably stacks up against a Super Scout. And I'm sorry, that Super Scout's going to run it into the ground still. Harley does not compete in this sub 10K category yet. I hope they will, and I hope they move that way. But right now, it's a disingenuous comparison because that Harley Davidson is offering you way more than that Suzuki. So don't tell me that this Suzuki has everything you could ever need when it does not meet the performance of the bike you're trying to compare it to. Of course the Harley costs more. It offers more, bigger displacement, bigger numbers. That Street Bob is about the same weight. And these boulevards that he's showing that have the windscreen and the sissy bar and the bag, that's all adding weight. That'll push it towards the Heritage Classic weight. And it's adding money too, because you don't get that stuff for free. And it's all pushing it towards the price of the Street Bob and the Heritage. It just is what it is, right?
Getting the full American cruiser aesthetic, the chrome, the size, the presence,
we're just talking
for less than
looks
half the price of the
and
Harley
fine,
equivalent.
whatever.
But what if you are a taller rider?
But that's not what
or a shorter
people
rider?
buy motorcycles
What if
for.
you struggle?
People don't buy this motorcycle or that motorcycle just because of the look. That's not the only consideration. That's not the only factor. If it is, then that's on the individual. I mean, I guess I picked the Road Glide over the Pursuit because of looks, but that's because everything else compared so closely that I felt that I wanted that one last aspect that drew me to it. It was like the last factor in all the things, but they lined up and stacked right next to each other. And that doesn't happen when you're looking at a Boulevard versus a Street Bob. If that's your consideration or that's what you're comparing, that price difference comes with things.
To find a
It's
bike
not
that
a
fits.
blowout.
You need a bike that adapts to you. Number 7, the Kawasaki Vulcan S. This is the bike that adapts to you, not the other way around. Harley will sell you a bike and then charge you thousands to change the seat and bars. Kawasaki does it for free.
Yeah.
The Harley it destroys, the Harley Softail.
Look, they'll move the seat and bar. I don't think they're giving out free seats and bars. I don't know. I haven't bought from a Suzuki dealer. I have a Yamaha TTR, but like I don't think they're just giving away different seats and bars. Could be wrong.
Standard, a basic
They'll
stripped
change
down
the
cruiser
position, though. Harley
that
will
costs
too.
roughly $14,000 and comes with basically nothing.
So here we are again, where we're talking about a bike that Harley doesn't even make anymore, right? Harley Davidson cruiser lineup standard doesn't exist. So now we're talking about the Street Bob instead of the standard. So he's giving a bike that doesn't exist to compare to this Vulcan. But we can't do that, right? And yeah, we're talking 14.9 for a Street Bob. But I bet he's going to go into things that don't actually fit the Street Bob as far as like general usage, because he's going to play into the strengths of the Vulcan and he's going to downplay everything Harley does.
The Kawasaki Vulcan S is a sport cruiser hybrid.
I would not say that about the Street Bob.
It uses the engine
I'd
from
say
the
it about
Ninja
the Sportster S.
650, a
We can bring those numbers up.
649 cubic centimeter parallel twin. It is punchy, it revs high, it is fast. It makes 60 horsepower, which is significantly more responsive than the air-cooled lumps.
Significantly more responsive than the air-cooled lumps. So let's look at the numbers. Let's see what the tail of the tape is. And at least Kawasaki gives you the numbers, but we are talking about 60 horsepower over 45 foot-pounds of torque. He wants to use the standard, which doesn't exist, so we have to go with the Street Bob at 98 over 120. I bet that Vulcan's a lot lighter. I bet it is, though. Curb weight is 502, weight and running order 646. So it is lighter, but it's so much more responsive than those big lugs. It runs a 4.1 versus a Street Bob's 3.5. That doesn't sound more responsive. That doesn't sound faster, doesn't sound quicker and more responsive than that big lump of a Street Bob. But there is no replacement for displacement
in entry-level Harleys. But the genius is the Ergo Fit system. When you buy the bike, the dealer can...
I like the Ergo Fit system. I'm not sold on it. I need to do more research on how it works, but has multiple positions for the pegs, and they say the handlebars, but you can move handlebars. Handlebars move freely. I think it's a benefit, but I also think it's kind of right on the edge of gimmick, right? It's a little, but not a lot. I like it though.
Figures it to your height. They have 3 positions for the foot pegs, different handlebars and different seats. Are you 5'2"? No problem. Are you 6'4"? No problem. They tailor the bike to your body at the point of sale. It handles like a sport bike disguised as a cruiser.
That's good.
You can lean it over without scraping parts instantly.
See, all the words he's using here want me to pull up the Sportster S, because it's a cruiser that handles like a sport bike, right? And realistically, the Sportster S is the same price as what he's comparing it to, the Street Bob. Well, it's $1,000 more, but oh my Lord, what are we getting for that 1,500 or 1,600, 121 over 93, a 3.2 second 0 to 60. I feel like he's using words to describe the Sportster S while comparing it to a Street Bob to play up the Vulcan, but the Vulcan doesn't hit the Sportster S. It doesn't even hit the Nightster at 3.9. So now we're looking at a $2,000 difference. 2,000 if you don't go with the Cafe ABS, from the Suzuki to the Nightster, but the Nightster is going to put it into the ground because it performs better and it's lighter. So these comparisons continue to fall short, not because they're not fully true, but because you're comparing things to things that should not be compared. It's not an apples to apples. It's not even close. But you're going to sit here and sell this to me like Harley is doing everything wrong when you are giving me a false impression of what the actual numbers and stats are.
It has a perimeter frame and an offset rear shock that looks modern and technical. It doesn't pretend to be an old bike. It embraces being a new bike. The price?
The Street Bob is an old bike. Well, it's a classic style bike. Sportster S isn't, Nightster isn't. So why are we comparing the two? Because now, earlier with the C50, I could understand. We're talking about like looks, appearance, and riding position, but now we're not. Now we're talking about something that's new age versus old age. Completely different feels, completely different metrics. This honestly probably stacks up closest to a Scout Sport. I don't want to put it against Scout 101. Keeps using words that are like Sportster S, Scout 101 territory, but I don't think it stacks up against those two. That it is cheaper, but you're not getting the performance out of it.
$7,349. For $7,000, you get a custom-fitted motorcycle that can out-accelerate most air-cooled twins. That is a bargain, but maybe
it's not out-accelerating most air-cooled twins. The Street Bob is the smallest bike Harley-Davidson makes and it's not even air-cooled. It's twin-cooled. But he's using the smallest M8 is the low output 117 in the Street Bob, and it doesn't out-accelerate that. It's a straight lie. And you can't find the numbers to tell me otherwise, because I just pulled it up and showed you. But he's going to throw it down your face and say it's true.
You want simplicity? Maybe you want a bike that looks like a custom bobber straight from the factory? Then you need a bike to follow you everywhere. You need a Shadow. Number 6, the Honda Shadow. This is the unkillable ghost. The Honda Shadow has been around since the 80s, surviving trends, recessions, and competitors that have come and gone.
I have no qualms.
But the Phantom is its coolest, meanest incarnation yet. It strips away the chrome and embraces the darkness. It is blacked out, mean, and utterly reliable. The Harley it destroys, the Harley-Davidson Street Bob. The Street Bob is the entry point to the big twin Dyna Softail line, but it starts at a staggering $16,000. That is a massive...
I like how it said $60,000 at the bottom. That's not what we're talking about, is it? And it's not 16 either, right? It's 14.9, 15. Again, we've gone over this, we've showed this. It's 14.9 for the Street Bob. It's not 16. It's definitely not 60 is what the graphic showed. 60. You get a CVO for that. You get a CVO for less than that.
Premium for a badge. The Honda Shadow Phantom drips with attitude. It features a 745 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled V-twin engine. But this isn't just any engine. It features a unique 3-valve cylinder head design, 2 intake valves, and 1 exhaust valve. This gives it a surprisingly potent punch off the line and a unique character that separates it from other metric cruisers. It breathes deeper and pulls harder than the numbers suggest. It sits low. The seat height is just 25.6 inches. You are practically sitting on the asphalt. This makes it incredibly easy to manage at stoplights, even for shorter riders. It gives you a planted, confident feeling that taller bikes simply cannot.
So, see, here again, man, it's just numbers, right? But seat height lane 25.8. So if it's a huge benefit to the Shadow, Street Bob sits a little bit lower. So the Shadow is super easy to control because of its seat height, but the Harley Davidson, we're not going to talk about it because those numbers don't support what you're saying, and they don't make the Harley look bad.
Not match. It has fat tires on spoked wheels or stylish mag wheels on the newer models that give it a chunky, muscular stance. It looks like it could punch a hole through a brick wall. And again, shaft drive. I cannot stress this enough. For a bike under 10 grand to have a shaft drive is incredible value. Most competitors give you a messy chain that needs constant lubrication and adjustment.
Harley doesn't give you a chain. Keeps talking about chains as he's sitting there telling us how bad Harley is. The implication is Harley Davidson gives you chains. They don't. They give you belts, which are cleaner, lower maintenance, and when you snap one, you just replace it. It's not that hard. But the shaft drive will continue once it goes. If it goes, you have big problems.
Phantom gives you a sealed system. You can ride this bike through rain, mud,
dislike
and grit,
shaft drive.
and the final drive just laughs. It is...
Shaft drive does have the benefit of it tends to put more of the power from the engine down to the wheel. It does. It's better at that. Doesn't have any leg, doesn't have any disconnect. But it also has a little bit of up down because of the way it works. There's no flex in it, right?
It's virtually maintenance free. It is Honda reliable.
Virtually.
You can neglect it. You can leave it in a damp shed for winter without a battery tender. You can forget oil changes for longer than you should. It will still start. It will always fire up. It is the cockroach of cruisers. It asks for nothing and gives you everything. It is the loyal dog that never bites. The price? $8,399. It is half the price of a Street Bob.
Not exactly. Not exactly half the price, right? Because that pesky $600 puts it a little over half the price. Because again, he lied about the price of the Street Bob. And he talked about the numbers and the performance. He didn't really mention as much, but we're getting 98 over 120 versus the Honda Shadow. I don't know why I came here. They don't show the specs on Honda's website, but 45 over 48. Not in the same ballpark. That's why it generally falling between 5.9 to 8 seconds versus the 3.5 again. It doesn't outperform the Harley Davidson. But you're going to pit these two against each other when they don't really deserve to be pitted against each other. Harley is not in the space that he's talking about. They need to be, but they're not. And if you do these comparisons, the numbers are going to show you why you cannot get a Harley Davidson Street Bob for the price of a Honda Shadow, because it doesn't stack up. I'm not saying the Shadow is a bad bike. I'm not saying any of these are bad bikes. I actually like most of them. But these comparisons shouldn't be made, and they shouldn't be done in a disingenuous manner where you're hiding everything Harley does and amplifying everything that the overseas metric cruisers do. You are lying to the audience and painting a picture that is not true.
Is it half the bike? No, it is 90% of the style.
I don't know. Is it half the bike? 3.5 versus a 4 point, what was it? Versus a 5.9? That's almost a 6. That's almost half the bike. And it says 5.928, so it could be half the bike. The engine's smaller. The horsepower and torque is smaller. Almost half. It's almost half the bike. Right? Don't tell me it's not half the bike when the numbers and performance tell me that it's pretty close to half the bike. That's a decision you have to make when you're looking at buying a new bike. I agree with that. And that entry level price is really enticing. But that Street Bob's probably going to hold value a lot better when you go to resell it. And it's going to give you more performance when you have it. Those are the options people make. And neither is wrong. I don't discourage anyone from getting a Shadow. If that's their price range and that's what they're looking at, that makes a lot of sense. But Harley has things close to that price range that have better performance. And to not tell the audience that is a lie as well.
With 200% of the reliability, you keep the cash in your pocket instead of handing it to a mechanic.
Because the Honda Shadow has never been recalled. Never. Not once. It has. It isn't recent, so like obviously not really worth mentioning, but I guess in a general sense, like I can't find numbers to support actual total percentage of reliability. Honda is known for it to a certain degree, and I will give them that, because what I can find lends to Honda being more reliable than Harley Davidson, but in a marginal factor that is overemphasized right now in this video. It's overemphasized. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't think that it's as big as he's leading on to.
We've covered 5 incredible value cruisers so far. Which one has you reaching for your wallet? Drop your favorite in the comments below. But maybe you want something bigger? Then you want a full-size cruiser that feels like a freight train. Number 5, the Kawasaki Vulcan 900 Custom. This is the big boy of the midsize class. While other middleweight cruisers feel physically small, cramped, or like starter bikes, the Vulcan 900 feels massive. It has a physical presence that commands respect at every stoplight. If you park this next to a Sportster or a Scout, they look like toys. This machine is long, low, and stretched out like a predator waiting to pounce. It is so much better than the Harley Breakout. The Breakout is famous for its long rake, big front wheel, and fat rear tire. It is a beautiful machine.
This one, it's just not like, the problem is going to be the engine size again. Just like everything else, it's not Breakout size. It is like physically the size of a Breakout. It is a bigger motorcycle. So now we're going off of frame size, comfort, and riding position again. But I know that when we get into the numbers later, it's going to put it where it belongs, and it's going to show you why it costs less. these comparisons aren't great. But that being said, Harley Davidson does have something in the 10K price range with a 900cc size engine, and so does Indian in the Scout Bobber, or the Scout Bobber 60 and the Nightster. You compare those together because they're all about the same price with the same size engine. That Indian and Nightster are going to far outpace this, but they will be a smaller frame. So if you want to use the larger frame to do the comparison, the Breakout's going to have better performance because that much larger engine. And we'll show the numbers later.
Undeniably, but it starts at $23,000.
Does it? Does it? I don't trust anything he says. He might actually be right on this one. He may have actually got. So now the just natural numbers are big enough that we're going to start telling the truth again, because it is 23 starting out for the Breakout. But I've already gone over why I don't think it's a fair comparison. Because this is a completely different bike. He finally got a price right for a Harley Davidson.
That is the price of a decent sedan. For a weekend toy, that is a hard pill to swallow. But the Vulcan 900 Custom, just look at the stance. It features a massive 21-inch cast wheel up front with wafer-thin spokes that look like custom billet. It has wide, flat drag bars that pull your body forward into an aggressive attack riding position. And in the back, it rocks a fat 180mm tire. It captures that pro street chopper look perfectly. It looks like something that rolled out of a high-end custom shop in Orange County, not a factory.
Really? Looks like an OCC? The Honda Fury looks more like an OCC. Or it looks like an Iron Horse. Anytime like custom shops come up and you talk about Orange County, we know what you're talking about, and this is not that. It's not that. I'm sorry. Does it make it bad looking? No, I'm not even like really partial to choppers all that much, but like they're not the same. This doesn't look like something that rolls off a custom shop floor.
In Japan. At its heart beats a 903 cubic centimeter V-twin.
That's the
Kawasaki
difference.
pulled a brilliant engineering trick here. The engine is liquid-cooled for modern reliability and heat management, but the cylinders are deeply finned to look like classic air-cooled jugs. It keeps the vintage aesthetic without the vintage overheating problems. It connects to the rear wheel via a carbon-reinforced belt drive. This means smooth, quiet power delivery with zero chain maintenance. You just ride and let...
See, what am I talking about? Earlier when he was talking about shaft drives, they're so much better than belt drives, but now he's going to use belt drive as an advantage, even though every Harley Davidson has a belt drive. So it's an advantage for this bike to have a belt drive, but we're not going to talk about Harley Davidson's belt drive as an advantage. And you're going to talk about chain drive again when you're constantly putting down Harley Davidson, and Harley Davidson doesn't have chain drive. It's that cherry picking of facts and options that is so disingenuous that I can't stomach it. Because you are outwardly deceiving just in the way you present the information, even if that information is factually true.
Let's talk about freedom. The tank is huge. It holds 5.3 gallons of fuel. Combined with the efficient fuel injection, that gives you a range of over 200 miles. Most Harleys in this custom class have tiny peanut tanks that force you to stop constantly for gas, turning every road trip into a tour of the nation's gas stations. The Vulcan 900 lets you ride from state line to state line without putting...
He wanted to draw the comparison to the Breakout. He pulled out the Breakout, not me. Breakout has a 5-gallon tank. Street Bob has a smaller one. He's right if he's talking about the Street Bob, but he's not. He went for the Breakout. That's the one he wants. Has a 5-gallon tank. While we're at it, we'll just do the rest of the numbers. 51 over 58, right? 51 over 58 for the Vulcan. It's respectable. But we're 103 over 126 on the Breakout, which gives us a Vulcan 900 5.9 to 6 second 0 to 60. And it gives the breakout 4.5 to 4.6. It matters. It matters. That's the difference. That's the price. These aren't comparable. I can't say it enough, and I will just continue to regurgitate and vomit the exact same thing because he's doing the exact same thing over and over again. He's presenting you a comparison that does not deserve to be made because it belittles both brands by making one look way too expensive and making that other one look underpowered. And that's what you will continue to get when you continue to pit bikes that do not belong pitted against each other.
A foot down. It is comfortable, spacious, and has a road presence that makes car drivers think you are on a 30K custom chopper. The hidden rear monoshock gives it the clean lines of a hardtail, but provides nearly 4 inches.
No one will sit there and look at a 900 custom and be like, oh man, that is a custom chopper. No one will make that comparison. If they do, they are a layman and don't know anything about motorcycles. And I think everyone here will probably agree with that.
Of travel to soak up the bumps. The price of the Vulcan 900, $9,399. Let that sink in.
Let that sink in. It's the same price as the Nightster. And we can pull up the Nightster numbers again. Do I have to? Do I need to? You know where they are. It's like 3.9 on the 0 to 60. Right? And it's horsepower to torque 91 over, what was it, 70 something. But again, you're not in the same ballpark. At the same price, with the same size engine roughly, Nightster's a 987, 989, and this is a 903, so you're a lot closer, but you're not hitting the horsepower and torque numbers that the Nightster is. You're not hitting the 0 to 60. It's a bigger bike. It is, which means like it's probably a little bit more comfortable. But anything in the Harley Davidson and Indian lineup is going to outpace this bike. And that's the difference in price. It's just, it is what it is.
You get the breakout look, the long haul reliability, and the custom style for less than 10 grand. That is simple math. While Harley is busy trying to make their bikes high-tech with screens, ride modes, and complex electronics that no one asked for, Kawasaki went back to the drawing board to build the perfect machine. The Yamaha Tenere 700, the Pan America killer. Harley entered the adventure touring market.
It's a great bike. I want one. I think it does better off-road than the Pan American, but I don't think the two are comparable. It's a 700 versus a 1250. And it's the same thing that's happened this whole time. And like, there is a good comparison that they could have made that does do a little bit better. I think that Honda African Twin is closer to the Pan American at a cheaper price. I think it does a little bit better. But even when you're looking at that, it scales up to the Pan American's price, and you still have the BMW, which is considered the big boy of the adventure market, which the 1300 performs almost the same as a Pan American, but the Pan American is cheaper. I don't know. Like, the Tenere 700 is in a different class, and I can show that, and I will show. I'll pull it up right now, because BMW and Honda both make a model at the 750-500 range because they're a different class. People are using these smaller ones for enduro sport, and you don't use the Pan American for enduro because it's heavier. It's made for more on-road than off-road. But you look right here and you still have the BMW 450 GS, which is a smaller design. It's closer to the 500, and you have the 900, which is closer to the Tenere 7. So these other companies recognize that it's not in the same space, but this guy's going to put the Tenere 700 against the Pan American. And it's only going to be price. That's the big difference, because when you start getting into the power numbers, when we do, the power isn't going to be there for this Tenere
market with the Pan America.
Which is a good bike.
It is a technological marvel, but it is heavy, complex, and expensive. Yamaha took the opposite approach. The Harley-Davidson Pan America.
By not offering a 1200. Yamaha doesn't offer a 1200, and it's not an adventure touring, it's just an adventure. It's closer to a dual sport than it is to a full touring across the country bike. I have seen people do tours across the country on a Pan American. I don't know if people are doing that on Chanier. I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just not built and designed for that type of ride because it's not going to crush highway miles the same way the Pan American does.
1250 Special is a beast. It has 150 horsepower and adaptive ride height. But the price? It starts at nearly $20,000. That is the price.
I mean, not wrong. Not wrong. It's $99. It's $20. Finally got a price right. There's that. But again, like, the price difference is the fact that these aren't in the same category. They're not the same audience.
Price of a small sedan. But the Yamaha Tenere 700 is the bike that purists demanded. It doesn't have ride modes. It doesn't have cruise control. It doesn't have traction control other than your right wrist. It is raw. It is pure. It is the spiritual successor to the legendary Paris-Dakar winners of the past. It features the legendary CP2 engine, a 689 cubic centimeter parallel twin with a cross-plane crank. It sounds like a V-twin. It has torque everywhere. It is widely considered one of the most...
It has torque everywhere. Torque for days is 50 foot-pounds of torque compared to the Harley-Davidson's 94 foot-pounds of torque compared to the Honda Africa Twins 82 pounds of torque compared to the 1300 GS BMW 110 foot-pounds of torque, or even compared to the 900 GS 68 foot-pounds of torque. 50 foot-pounds of torque is torque for days for a Yamaha, but it falls desperately short to other offerings in the category that he's stating, not what I'm stating. And it stacks up right next to the Honda NC750X. It's torque for days for the Yamaha, but it falls desperately short of what you're trying to compare it to. Because it's a different category, it's a different class. It's a heavy adventure bike versus a midweight adventure bike.
Reliable motorcycle engines ever built. You can drown it, abuse it, and it will still fire up. But the key is simplicity and weight. The Tenere weighs just 459 pounds wet. The Harley weighs nearly 569 pounds. That is a 100...
One's a middleweight adventure bike and one's a heavyweight adventure bike. And when you put it in a class of 1100 to 1200s, all of a sudden, 535 pounds. The Pan American is 578 pounds. The BMW is 593 pounds. So, heavyweight adventure bikes weigh about the same. It's crazy how that works, but you're going to say the Yamaha is better because you're putting it in a class that it's not truly in.
10-pound difference. Off-road, that difference is the difference between having fun and having a hernia when you inevitably drop it in the mud. The Tenere uses KYB suspension that can handle jumps.
I agree, which is why all those other bikes are for light off-road duty in touring the country. They are designed to be better at crossing the country with light off-road work compared to middleweight adventure bikes, which do better on trails, but aren't going to give you the comfort of crossing the country. I'm not saying you can't do it, again, but these are not the same categories of bikes. They're not the same class.
Rocks, and mud. It isn't a street bike pretending to be an off-roader. It is a giant dirt bike that can do highway speeds. It is reliable because there are no electronics to fail in the middle of the desert. No screens to crack, no sensors.
No screens to crack. Not a one. No sensors. It has ABS. It has a screen. I don't know. I think that electronically they did put a good bit into the bike and you're just lying to us outright. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. I'm not. Yamaha's website shows screens, they show technology, they show Bluetooth connectability and ABS. You already said that it doesn't have ABS when it clearly shows on this screen that the ABS is off for this motorcycle. Don't tell me it doesn't have tech. They listened to the customers and they stripped it down free of tech because that's what the people wanted. When the motorcycle clearly has tech and keeps up with the modern world, because that's what they're competing against.
To glitch. The price, $10,999. You can buy the bike fully outfitted with high-end luggage, crash bars and lights,
and don't get me wrong, I think Harley Davidson needs a middleweight adventure bike. They need to figure it out. They tried to do it with the 989 engine, but it came out too heavy and they weren't happy with it. That doesn't mean they should stop. It means they should continue and they should figure out a way to find an engine to put in a middleweight adventure bike. I think Harley needs to do that. But right now, with what we have, they don't have one there. So they don't have one in that price range and they don't have one comparable to the Tannier 7, which is why I think the Tannier 7 is an amazing bike and I would love to have one. Because it fills a niche that Harley doesn't have right now.
still fund a trip to Alaska for the price of a naked Pan America. It is the smart choice for the real adventurer. But there is one bike that outclasses Harley in every measurable metric: speed, tech, handling, and value. Number 1, the Honda.
This is a really good bike. And I think this one actually compares. It's right in between the Nightster and the Sportster S at a cheaper price than the Nightster Special, which I really like. And I think it has a lot of options. I think it compares really nicely to like a Super Scout or a Scout Sport RT with some of the options that you can get on it. But it is cheaper than those. But it's not going to get the numbers that those bikes get. So I like this. This is actually a really good comparison. And this is one bike that I think falls squarely into the category where it has some things to offer over the competitors in this space. And it has some things that the other guys do a little better. I don't know which one he's going to compare it to, but we'll get into it and we'll start throwing up numbers, I guess.
Rebel 1100. This is the king, the machine that proves you don't need to be stuck in the past to enjoy a cruiser. Yes, we know about the Harley-Davidson Sportster S and the Lowrider S. These are Harley's performance cruisers. They are fast, they are cool, and they cost between $16,000 and $19,000. That is a massive chunk of change for a weekend toy. However, the Honda Rebel 1100 is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It uses the legendary engine from the Africa Twin, a 1,084 cubic centimeter parallel. Twin, it makes 86 horsepower. That puts it right on the heels of the big Harleys in terms of acceleration. But here is the physics lesson. The Rebel weighs just 487 pounds. So
we're going to talk performance, right? I mean, Honda Rebel 1100 0 to 60 is 4.6 to 4.9. The Lowrider S is 4 seconds. Lowrider ST is 4.2. I mean, why he picked the Lowrider is beyond me. It's not really comparable. 86 horsepower to 72 foot-pounds of torque. But if you get in the Nightster, it's pretty comparable. Nightster has 91 over 70 versus the Honda's 86 over 72. Extremely comparable. It's an 1100 versus a 989. If you bring the Sportster in, we're not going to be close anymore. The Sportster is going to be a lot more expensive. But that's because the Sportster has the performance of 121 over 93. 0 60 times match it. Sportster S is designed to be a lot more sporty than the Nightster and the Honda Rebel 1100. Why you're bringing the lowrider into this is beyond me, and it's only going to be because of the weight issue that he's bringing up right now. Doesn't make sense though.
Lowrider S weighs nearly 700. The power-to-weight ratio is 487 pounds. The Lowrider S weighs nearly 700. The power-to-weight ratio is insane. It launches off the line.
You said 480 something pounds for this guy, right? The Rebel 1100. The curb weight is 528 pounds. Came like 40 pounds short. He shaved 40 pounds for the Rebel, but then he gave the Lowrider S weight at 700 pounds, so it gave them an extra 30 pounds. That's a 70-point swing in the information you just received. A 70-pound difference between what he gave you and what the truth is. And that's why he picked this, because if you go to the Nightster, it's going to be 480 pounds. It's lighter. The Sportster S is 502 pounds. It's lighter. That's why he picked the Lowrider S. To harp on this point that doesn't make sense because it's not true to start with, and these things shouldn't be compared to each other. It's constant, and I like the Rebel 1100. I think it's a really good bike. It's a great starter bike. It occupies the right space in the market, competing with Indian Scout and Harley Davidson Nightster Sportster S lineups at a lower price for a little bit less power, but it gives you what those other bikes give you. That is a really hard comparison. It's hard to determine what I want out of my motorcycle if I'm looking at a Honda Rebel 1100 for a little bit less versus a Nightster Special or Scout Super Scout. I have to determine like how much that extra power is worth dollar to dollar comparison. But when you throw in the Lowrider S, we're in a completely different ballpark now. And then you're going to lie about those numbers anyway and just make shit up.
Line like a sport bike. It can lean over 35 degrees in corners, meaning you can actually turn it without scraping half the chassis off on the asphalt. But the killer app, technology.
And then again, you're going to sit there and tell me about lean angles and sporty handling, but you're not going to compare it to the sporty small entry bikes that Harley Davidson makes in that same price range.
It has ride modes, sport, rain, tour. It has wheelie.
In the Tanier 7, I was told all of this is just nether points of failure that take away from the riding experience and destroys everything. For this bike, it's a huge asset. For the last bike, it was the sell point, even though that was a lie as well.
Control. It has cruise control standard, and if you choose, it has DCT, dual clutch transmission. This is an automatic gearbox that shifts faster than a human ever could. You can paddle shift it like a Ferrari, or let it do the work in traffic. It makes the bike accessible to everyone, from beginners to veterans with arthritis who are tired of heavy clutch levers. And let's talk about the Rebel 1100T. This is the bagger version with a batwing fairing and hard saddlebags.
I've harped that Harley Davidson needs an option in this space. Indian does have an option in this space in the Super Scout and the Sport RT. Why Harley doesn't give those options to its riders in the Nightster and Sportster lineup is beyond me. And this is a huge advantage to the Honda. But you're comparing it to the wrong bike again because you put it up against the Lowrider S. But if we're going to talk sporty, then you have to talk about the Lowrider ST, which has bags and a windscreen. Costs a lot more, just a lot more engine. I don't know, right?
It looks like a baby street glide, but handles like a naked sport bike. The price? The standard Rebel 1100 starts at roughly $9,600.
And he's going to talk up the T and then give you the price for the
base
DCT
model is around $10,300.
Okay.
Even the fully loaded bagger version is barely $11,500. Think of it.
Again, puts you right against the Nightster Special, which gives you all the same features except the windscreen in the bag. but it's faster. It has a little bit more power. They're a really good comparison for the Nightster, Sportster S, Scout, Sport RT. You know, there are really good comparisons, and that is an extremely competitive section. That 10K entry level cruiser area is extremely competitive because those are all very close bikes. But that's not what you're doing. You're trying to sell a blowout for the Honda Rebel 1100 by putting it against a bike it has no business being pitted against. Because if you're honestly walking into a Harley and saying, well, I'm thinking about the Rebel 1100, but I'm gonna look at the Lowrider S, and then the price point is what steers you away, you weren't honestly comparing those two options to begin with.
About that, Harley charges over $27,000 for a base street glide. That is
And now we're talking about the Street Glide. Why are we in the Street Glide now? But I mean, I guess he didn't know, and maybe he didn't pay attention, but you can get a Street Glide for 25K now instead of 27, because you can get the solo option Billiard Gray, which is a discount Street Glide for 25K. But again, that's not what he started with. He shifted the goalpost when it came time to give prices, which is fair because I don't even think that the initial comparison was correct anyway, but Lowrider S is at 19. Well, 20. So another, like, we're $7,000 from where we started, but he gives fake prices anyway. And I just sat here and showed you things that are in the price range that are really competitive. I don't know. It's dishonest. It's deceitful.
It isn't just half
Disingenuous.
price. That is a completely different universe of value. You could buy two
Yeah.
Rebels, one for you and one for
Yeah, it's a completely different value prospect. It's not even close. The 117 high output touring bike is going to handle the highways and the miles better than that 1100. It's a lot bigger, a lot more storage space, a lot more comfortable. It's a different bike entirely, which is why the price exists. That's why the price is so different.
for your spouse, and still have enough money left over for a dream road trip across the country. That is why it is number one. But wait, if you want to see
I don't want to see anything more. I'm done. I mean, I don't know. That's where it is. And you can tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me I'm dead wrong. I don't care. The fact of the matter is everyone says these things, these AI voice channels say these things that are deceptive. They're not apples to apples comparisons, and everyone wants to talk like this. Well, Harley's so damn expensive because the Suzuki Boulevard exists, a 900cc engine. It's not in the same real category. It's not. I'm sorry. Do I think Harley needs to be in that category? 100%. All day, twice on Sunday. I think Harley needs to expand that way, and they're working on it. We've been told the Sprint is going to come out. Whether it does, whether it doesn't, we have to wait and see. But until that day happens, Harley doesn't occupy that space. The Rebel 1100 is the only one that is really an apples to apples. Even when there was an opportunity to have a closer to apples that still made the Japanese bike look good, the Honda African Twin versus the Pan American, he didn't take it. He didn't take it because it wasn't as big of a difference in price than everything else. Like the Tan here 700, but Harley doesn't make a 700cc adventure bike. Honda does. BMW does, because it's a different category, but Harley doesn't yet. I think they should. But you had the layup right there. I think the Honda African Twin still looks a little better. It doesn't have as much power, doesn't have as much torque, but like it is lighter, which is a big deal for an adventure bike. I think the African Twin was there, but he fucking missed it, didn't take it because it wasn't a big enough difference. Everything else on that list, except for the 1100, Rebel 1100, was way below anything in Harley's market. And when you compare any of those below Harley's market to the Nightster, the performance isn't there. The Nightster beats it into the ground as an entry level bike. Every single one of those smaller CC engines. And if you're going to compare like the Boulevard, well, you're going to go up against the Street Bob. The Street Bob have way better performance. Yeah, it costs a little bit more. But that's what engine and weight does. It's of course the weights are different because you're comparing a 2000 cc engine to a 600, 700, 900 cc engine. These are disingenuous arguments and comparisons. I don't like making them. I don't like being the guy that's breaking it down and saying, hey, like, look at these numbers versus these numbers. That's not great feeling because I don't think those comparisons should be made. But here we are where this guy puts it out freely and just vomits out nonsense and comparisons that should never be made. And I'm going to stand up against it because it's not right. A lot of the bikes, almost all the bikes, I like all those bikes on that list. I like all those bikes on that list. But here I am arguing against them because it's such a disingenuous comparison. I have friends that ride those bikes with our group. And, you know, we don't make fun of them. We don't split them apart. There's nothing different. There's nothing wrong with those bikes. But they are not straight comparable to the Harley Davidson. And again, like I pointed out early, there is a reason he says he's going to compare to Harley Davidson and not Indian Motorcycle Company. Because Harley Davidson is the big boy on the block. Everyone likes to hate them, and it's so popular to hate them. But it's not deserved, and that comparison doesn't make any fucking sense. I'm sorry, get over it. Harley's here, you're here. The competition makes us all better. When Harley moves down into that space with the Sprint, I'm going to be very interested to see how all these companies react. Because when there is a American assembled 600cc Harley Davidson sitting in that lineup for 6K, and when they introduce a 7 or 8K motorcycle that is very comparative on performance, I am going to be very curious to see how these companies react. And if you're going to hold water and sit there and compare your bikes, especially if they come up short to the Harley's performance, if you're going to sit there and compare these bikes to those ones and be honest and truthful with yourself, and I bet you won't. I bet they do that and you still compare the Boulevard to a, I don't know, Road King, because why not? Let's put it up against a $22,000 bike and then make fun of its price, even though they're completely different segments of the market. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for hanging out, listening, like, subscribe, all the things. Maybe it got a little bit heated there, but I'm all good. I love them all. I really do. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite bike is and if any of those comparisons made any sense.